Kindly let's applaud them.
Thank you very much.
Wapi makofi ya danko? I think our technical team led by Paul kindly consult the hotel. Most of their microphones here are dead, so that they rectify that as we proceed. Now, without much ado, I want to take this opportunity to invite the first speaker to join me here in the podium. And the speaker is Willie Simon, who is the Managing Director of Specialty. The topic is leveraging big data and information in water and sanitation by youth and women for accelerated access to water and sanitation within the confines of SDG 6. Dr. Willie Simons is a data scientist, a geospatial expert, and a director at Specialty. As I do this, I'll request him to step forward so that the audience can have the benefit to understand or to see who I'm introducing. Kindly have a seat. His experience is since 1999, where he has provided leadership and management to 3 companies in Kenya's geospatial industry. His competitive strategy, clear communication, a collaborative work environment, and alignment of people to processes and technology. His ability is, he has valuable and unique abilities in effective communication and proficiency in the use of spatial and business data and in-depth knowledge of the geospatial industry. He is passionate. We will take a passionometer to measure this passion. He is passionate about equality through entrepreneurship, empowerment, and environmental sustainability through application of data and technology. And please take note that this is one of our key thematic area in this conference. So kindly help me to put our hands together for Dr. Willie Simon. He will have 10 minutes. Welcome, Dr.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for that wonderful introduction. I'm even beginning to wonder whether I'll be able to live up to it, you know. Excellent communication. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I have slides, but maybe if I don't share them, maybe I use them for my own benefit. We are here to talk about big data, but my entire professional career, I've worked with GIS. Now we've heard about, you know, surveying and mapping, then it became GIS and mapping. And I think some of you are getting familiar with GIS. Now GIS, I think technologies are converging, so, you know, I've started, spatiality is actually derived from geospatial. Is geospatial special? We Some think it is, you know, it has some special characteristics, it needs special competencies, but anyone can use it. I think water utilities, they can leverage geospatial technologies, they can leverage data. And of course, when we talk about data, we talk about big data, but what is big data? I think, you know, you can interpret that in many different ways. Some of us think that, you know, it is special processing of huge volumes of data. That is the narrow definition of big data. So you need to get into cloud computing, parallel computing, because the amounts of data that we're talking about, you can't put it in a spreadsheet. But I think that is the future, you know. All of us, I think, we're going to leverage big data in the future. But for starters, I think we should be leveraging or using the data that we already have. The other paradigm of big data is that, you know, I think it's a paradigm shift. This has to do with statistics. The law of big numbers, I don't know whether you've heard of it, but sometimes, you know, we rely on authoritative data that is of good quality from the government. But when we talk about big data, we can leverage additional data sources. We can leverage satellite imagery. We can leverage IoT data that is collected through smart meters, for instance. We can also, you know, leverage data, social media. And I think importantly, I think we can also use crowdsourced data or citizen science data. And perhaps, you know, that's where there is an opportunity. I don't think we have enough data. Data is never enough. When you want to, I think with the modern processing, the more data you have, the better. So if we're talking about monitoring, for instance, water quality, we can use the scientific data, the laboratory tests. We can also use data from satellite imagery. But we can also use crowdsourced data. Because, you know, the youth and the women, you are stakeholders in management of the water resources. So we could use cheap techniques, field kits to measure water quality, and that data, I think, can be used, can be analyzed, and it will provide information and insights that can be used for decision making. Just give me a minute. So I don't know whether I can show something, because it would actually be nice if that you know, we can have a look at a few examples. But if we're talking about data, I think some of the facts is that Kenya is water scarce and Kenya is water stressed. I believe you've heard that before, and of course we have figures about that. The question maybe is, the figures that we have, how accurate are they? And, you know, and of course it also raises other questions. When you talk about 64% Kenyans having access to water, you ask yourself, you know, how is that broken down by age or by gender or by geographic location? And I think access is also multidimensional. It is not just about, you know, having water. It is also the physical distance that you need to travel to get access to water. I think it is also the cost. And I think it's also the quality of that water that is important. So I think there's a lot more that can be done in terms of collecting data and analyzing data. So when we talk about geospatial, it's a convergence of different technologies. We talk about GIS, we talk about positioning technology, GPS, that you use to collect information in the fields. And we also talk about using Earth observation, satellite imagery. And of course also IoT data to some extent is geospatial data, because it transmits the location of the sensor of the device. So you have the ability to put that information on a on a map and analyze it in a geographic context. Just a minute. So maybe zeroing in on big data. When we talk about big data, we talk about the V's of big data. Sometimes, you know, some people have 3, 5, others they have 7 V's, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. And when we talk about data, we say more is better, but of course it also gets more confusing. I think the ones that maybe you, for starters, you need to memorize is the first 3. So 3 characteristics. I think first of all is volume. So we're talking about large amounts of data. And the challenge, of course, is now where do you store that data? So typically it means that you need to start adopting cloud technology. Particularly when we talk about, you know, satellite imagery and IoT data. So that's what you need to think about. The next thing is about velocity. So data is continuously collected. So it's a never-ending stream of data. And you know, for you to use that data, I think you need to process it almost in real time. So again, that is a challenge. So it requires some data engineering. The next one is variety. So data can be structured in a tabular format, but we also have data that is not structured, like satellite imagery, or we have semi-structured data. The next 2 that I can give you as a bonus are veracity and value. Now veracity, anybody who knows what veracity means, it talks about the fact that, you know, data is not always fully accurate. It has uncertain distribution network. And again, additional information on your consumers. You know, you can map each and every building. You can have information about population, about environmental conditions within your jurisdiction. So what I'm showing now on my screen is about the hierarchy of the data needs. So when we talk about data analytics, of course, it starts with, you know, for you to collect data. So the services that we provide is to help you to collect data, documenting your network, collecting data in the fields, extracting data from satellite imagery. And again, that data needs to be stored. It needs to be stored on a server, on-premise, or you might have to store it in the cloud. Quality of data is key, so data needs to be cleaned. You have to deal with missing and erroneous data. And that, you know, tends to be very tedious. Sometimes we overlook cleaning of the data, but if you use incorrect data, it leads to incorrect insights and decisions. Data, I think it's important also to visualize it and to analyze it. And the next step really would be to share the data and use it in your operations. And of course, using data in your operations, that might require some information. Because traditionally, I think you've been using, you know, manual processes, but now for you to fully exploit the technology, you might have to change your business processes. the approach that we recommend for adoption of technology, that you don't just start doing it. It starts with planning. You have to plan for it. So that means you need to decide what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and of course you need to commit a budget, and you need to do a cost-benefit analysis. Make sure that you're not just throwing money at technology, hoping that it will give you a return of investment. I think you need to start planning with the end in mind. What are you going to do with that data? What action are you going to take, and how is it going to help your business? The next step is really to design. Before you build anything, you need to design it. It's like building a house. You have your architectural drawings. So design it, then build it, and then of course start using it. And again, you can start small. This is an incremental process. So planning typically is done, once a year. So you can plan for the year, then again next year you go through the same cycle. I think I have some memorable quotes that I could share with you that are just related to these 4 phases that I talked about: plan, design, build, and operate. The first one is from Benjamin Franklin. I think we know it. If you're failing to plan, you're planning to fail. Okay? I think we know it. We tend to forget about it. Steve Jobs, the guy we know from the iPhone. Design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. So critical for you to design your technology systems before you develop them. And if you're working with a consultant, you have to agree on the design before you build. With data collection, the sooner the better is always the best answer. Marissa Meyer, former CEO and president of Yahoo. So I think you can start, I would say the first thing you probably need to do is just to map your meter locations. Because the meters are so important. That's the integration point between your water distribution network and your revenue streams. So definitely you must map your meters, and then you can map your entire water distribution network. So that means the pipes and all the other stuff, the valves. And
you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay. The next thing is about the database itself is useless. Data is only useful if you apply it. And that, I think, is a quote from Todd Park, former CTO of the United States. And I think that is it. Unless, well, now we have the screen, so can I have 2 minutes? Because now I can actually maybe give you show you. Rather than talking about it, we can show a few things. The first one, I think, was about using satellite imagery. So maybe it's not entirely clear, but here I was using free satellite imagery, Sentinel. And I was using a specific band ratio that brings out the difference between water and non-water. And here you can clearly see, what is this? Lake Navasha. So you can use satellite imagery to measure the extent of the lakes or of your reservoir. You can also create dashboard indicators. Now this is one that is not related about COVID. So this is very good for management. This was just showing you the use of another type of imagery, which is radar. Radar imagery can be used for detecting water leakages, so very useful. And again, we have machines that are used for field survey. You can actually use that to detect your underground pipes, because you might not know where they are. This map is not very clear, but it was just an attempt to now document your water utility network. And of course you see on the right that you have symbolized the network, so you have your valves, storage facilities, you have the pipes, you have the meters. So the entire network can be documented. And I think this of course, that information can now be shared within the office and with the people working in the field. And I think it also provides a system for asset management. You keep track of the assets that you have. And I think for maybe the next frontier is this is Jupyter Notebook. I don't know, some of you might be wondering, but this is about Python programming, and I think connecting GIS with machine learning and deep learning. And I've just an example of an analysis that is looking at water turbidity in India, and maybe I can just browse down to the. So the notebooks are very educational. It's it shows you the methodology, the background, and I think finally here the results show the turbidity of a place. I think it is the Ganges River. So they looked at its water turbidity before and after or during COVID. And of course the conclusion was that the turbidity had decreased. So we can leverage these technologies to monitor water quality in, for instance, Lake Navasha. I think with that, yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Willie. I'll invite you to join me here. Why don't we appreciate Dr. Willie Simon? Now, the next presenter is joining us online, and that is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer at Water Sector Trust Fund. So the topic here is innovative and optimized financing opportunities for youth and women to accelerate access to water and sanitation for all. Mr. Shaiye is a natural resource expert with over 10 years experience. I don't know where the IT team is, but we should be able to be projecting and getting Mr. Shaiye on standby in various countries in Eastern Africa and the United States of America. He served as a program manager and environmental officer at the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, in Nairobi, with the responsibilities of ensuring that programs comply with both national and international environmental laws. In addition, he advises USAID missions in the region on border issues pertaining to water and sanitation, environmental regulation, biodiversity protection, climate change, and environmental dispute resolution. Mr. Shaiye holds a master's degree in international environmental law from Vermont Law School. He also holds a master's of science degree in natural resource management, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in global studies with a bias in environmental governance from the University of Minnesota. He has extensive experience in the application and compliance of multilateral environmental agreements and is an experienced development professional with experience in program management, monitoring and evaluation, and communication for clients, including the World Bank, European Union, DFID, and the United Nations. Mr. Shaiye has worked previously with several organizations in the field of water, sanitation, and environment, including USAID, Kenya Red Cross Society, Mercy USA for Aid and Development, and Mississippi County Watershed USA. Kindly let us put our hands together to welcome Mr. Shaiye to do the presentation. Welcome, Bwana CEO.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Am I loud enough?
Yeah, you are loud enough. You have 10 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All protocol observed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to present to you. I was given the topic of innovative and optimized financing opportunities for the youth and women to accelerate access to water and sanitation for all. I will do a deep dive in. Go to the next slide, please. In the water sector, especially in the water fund, we actually pride ourselves for the sushi menu that we developed when we were dealing with our donors and with our partners. Through GOK and our partners are working together to come up with innovative financing in the water sector, and we are making strides.
Hold it a little bit. Is he audible
Sure.
enough? You are getting it. Mr. Shaiye, just hold on as we adjust the sound. Don't leave, because everybody in the room is not getting you. So don't leave, just hold on a few seconds as the technical team works on the sound system so that the presentation benefits everybody in the room.
No problem.
So just hold on.
Sure.
So as the technical team gets that done, without much ado, because we are going to have panelists, I want to invite Grace Ndegwa. Grace Ndegwa is a senior level investment professional. So the IT team alert me when the sound system is okay. Senior level investment profession with above 12 years professional experience in investments, corporate finance, project finance, development finance, and project management. Practical experience in financial services, capital markets, private equity, and private investments in the water sector. Grace, kindly step forward so that you join us here for the... Why don't we appreciate Grace as she comes? I want also to invite Engineer Chengo from the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. Engineer Chengo is the Director in charge of sanitation management at the same ministry. Help me welcome him with an applause. So at the same time, we also have Dr. Sheila Simiu. Sheila works in water, sanitation, and hygiene issues within the Urbanization and Wellbeing Unit. She manages the fecal waste management project in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and the research on shared sanitation in Africa, that is RESA, study in Kenya and Ghana. Sheila has a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from Kenyatta University, a master's degree in public health from the same university, and a PhD in public and development management from Stellenbosch University. Prior joining APHRC, where she works She was a postdoctoral fellow on the Safe-START trial, a cluster randomized control trial on wash and nutrition that was implemented by the Great Lakes University of Kisumu in collaboration with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. In addition to the Safe-START trial, she co-led the market-to-mouth study aimed at assessing contamination of infant milk. Kindly join hands with me as we welcome Dr. Stella. Can we bring back Mr. Shaiye? The IT team? Bwana Shaiye?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready. You're ready on outside.
You are now audible.
All right. We'll go back to the second slide. Thank you. So I hopefully I'm loud enough now. I'm audible. Basically, I was introducing the topic, and I said we're using blended finance, and we're leveraging on both the private and the commercial financing in the water sector. And currently, we are utilizing two models, which I'm going to explain. One is the result-based financing for water utilities. And I am happy to say that this is where most of them who are participating in this conference today have actually benefited from. And they're using, basically they were presenting a bankable proposal to us and the banks, and where we felt that, yes, this is a bankable proposal with the lens of looking at all the issues that will lead to a bankable proposal, then we gave it okay, and they were ready to actually access a loan from the bank where the government was providing the subsidy. So the money, for example, I'll give you an example of where we received this money. It was a 11-point program. We were able to inject 816 million subsidy where, and I'll give the audience an example. For example, if you tell us that you want, Nairobi Water wants to provide water to South Sea, the community who live in South Sea, but we will ask them as an institution, because we are biased also on Propua, we will tell them, while you are taking this water to South Sea, please petition these pipes to Mukuru kwa Njenga. That way, we are able to, the willingness to pay is with the South Sea area where, you know, those communities who are being reached, but at the same time, the pipes and the water will also reach Mukuru kwa Njenga community. So let's say the project was 100 million, we approve it. Once we agree on the milestones and the water company is able to hit all those milestones, we will give them a subsidy of 60%. So if the loan was 100 million, we will give them 60 million. So they are remaining with 40 million, for example, to give, it will give them up to 8 years to 10 years to pay back the banks. Ladies and gentlemen, this has really worked for us in two ways. One, we were able to guide and reach out to the underserved. That is basically, the communities who live in our urban dwellers. Two, we were able also to target the project itself and the population that we want to reach out to. You understand that the water is very expensive in those slum areas in our country. So we were able to reduce the distance where they will walk to go and get that water, but also at the same time, leverage funding from the commercial side of our banks. I also wanted to announce here that as we speak, I don't remember sharing this with everyone, but on this, the success of this program, the result-based financing, there are two programs: OBA, output-based aid through the World Bank. The money came from the government of Sweden and GOK. And we have, another one that is coming up soon, which we are going to give access to 8 WSPs. But I wanted to say the OBA program is the award winning UN Public Service Award 2021 was awarded to the program under the result-based financing. This is something new I just shared with the management of the ministry just recently, last week. So it's something new. We won the UN Public Award 2019. Now we are also the UN Public Service awardees for 2021, again, once again, through this OBA program. Going back, number two, the revolving fund for the utilities, another implement homegrown initiative that we have started through with our ministry, and I'm glad Engineer Chengo is also in this panel because he was part and parcel of this process. So we said, while we can see the OBA model worked, the help of the World Bank and the government, we started a local initiative, and I remember even engaging WASPA as one of the institutions, our banks. So we want, water being a public good, we want to reduce the interest to wananchi, because the more they're able to borrow in a high interest rate, the more expensive the water will be for wananchi. So we want to subsidize that, and that is where now the commercial loans from the banks, we are making it, giving them affordable credit, and engaging our local banks in a way that they can also see this, the public good in the water sector, because we don't want to make it expensive. So these are the two ways that we are looking at, innovative ways of financing the water sector in our country. So please go to the next slide. We are also considering, and we have been working with several counties, leveraging and co-funding, getting co-funding from the counties. We are currently implementing a program in 8 counties: West Pokot, Baringo, Samburu, Taita Taveta, Kwale, just to mention a few, where the counties are actually co-funding a project with us, and they are actually putting in 15%, and Water Fund, through the government of Kenya, is putting in the other 85% with the help of also donor partner. We are able to design with the community, with the water utilities, and be able to implement. Number 2, we have also done, and we are going to make another call for proposal very soon, for upscaling, sanitation for the urban poor, where the water utilities were able to go to the market days that we have in several parts of this country, and they were selling toilets. We were giving subsidies to the people who are benefiting from that. So in a typical way, when you go to a market day, you'll see the tent of a WSP, and they were telling you that we are selling toilets. So if you are leasing or you have rental properties, that is where this project was coming handy. You will invest 25,000, we'll give you a subsidy of 20,000 per door in a restroom, in a toilet, for example. We also looking at the revenue generation on lending and subsidiary funds that the fund is considering to sustain these kind of initiatives. There's a levy fund where, if we are to go and be sustainable as a sector in this country, we need to ring fence the funds that are coming from the water sector. And we are encouraging counties level to actually not touch the money the WSPs are generating, because we want that money not only to pay the salaries of the staff who are working hard and delivering that service to wananchi, but also do the operational and maintenance for the same. So the Water Act 2016, hopefully once implemented, will also give us some sort of a source to fund also the water sector. Another area that we need to look at also where the finance is available, and we need to be very creative. When we talk about climate financing, the first thing, and the institutions that are benefiting from this area, is the natural resource area. For example, the Ministry of Environment. I don't know why, we always, when we talk about climate change, the first thing that comes to people's mind is Ministry of Natural Resource. But if you ask me, climate change, the first thing that it will affect is the water. It's the water sector. So as a ministry, we are, right now in the radar to receive and reach out to partners like the GCF. They have already given us $100 million US, which we are trying to now finish the process of bringing it back to this country. But we reached out to Green Climate Fund, who are based in Korea, South Korea. And myself and my colleague who is with you right now, Ruth Nganga, who is the chief manager for resource mobilization, we were able to go and meet with them and actually source that money. And we want to see how we can bring the private sector on board to collaborate with us. We also want to encourage our water companies to actually climate-proof our infrastructure, because climate change is affecting both urban and rural Kenya in the water sector at large. Another aspect that we are also considering is research financing, because in this day and age, when you are making a case in the financing sector, you have to show evidence-based. So by doing research, the research can actually contribute to how you are implementing a project, number one. And also, if you are to raise any issue, you need to source where that kind of research has been undertaken. So we want to bring those two aspects together in the future for the financing and the implementation of projects in our country. So go to the next, please. So overall, sound business models through revenue collection and efficiency is what we're looking at. Reduce non-revenue water, smart technology systems, ICT applications. Those are some of the aspects that we're looking at, in optimizing the financing sector. We are also looking at the development programs, opportunities for men, for women and youth. For us, when we are designing, not only do we look at JC, but we actually target, because if you really want to reach out, if you want to design a good program, let's be honest, the people who are actually working in the water sector, and the people who are benefiting, the people who are in the front line in the water sector are our women out there. Okay? Hakuna mwanaume anaenda kuchota maji, but it's wanawake who will suffer when there is drought. We have seen that on TV. Serikali saidia. I have never seen a man shouting from TV saying that serikali saidia, but I've seen our women, our youth, lamenting to the government to reach out to them. So even when we are designing a project, we need to actually put that in mind. We are looking for partnerships, both in financing, in our partnership, when we are doing a partnership with a community, for example. We want to reach out, and I mentioned this before. We are looking at the water sector as a whole. So not only the water services and the water infrastructure itself, but also irrigation. So I always say we are not financing the Galanas and the Aheros and the Mweas of this country. But if a small community organizes themselves in the middle of nowhere in this country, and they register themselves with the Sharia House, and then they go to National Irrigation Authority, we should be able to give them finance to do a small-scale irrigation, for example. So not only are we willing to give them the money, but we will also give them the technical assistance on the same. Remember I mentioned the revolving fund? We want to see how we can also finance the irrigation, small-scale irrigation in this country. We have already done, we mobilized, working with community through CLTS, community-led total sanitation. That is ongoing in several of our project areas. We have worked with communities also in corporate social responsibility financing. And we have done that and adopted actually Kakamega Forest, for example. Right now, every year, we give Kakamega Forest 2 million, for example, where we are working with the neighboring communities. In fact, we work with TICA, the Turkish agency, and we were able to distribute close to 500 bicycles to the girls who go to school nearby Kakamega Forest, because there are a lot of rape cases, and those bicycles.
I think that apply to us, and whatever issues that have, opportunities that have been raised in that fund applies